from Crochet Creations and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today is podcast episode 37 of the Crochet and Knitting Podcast. Welcome, welcome. I am so excited to share with you everything that I worked on and read in the month of October. October was kind of a big month in the fiber world with all of the Rhinebeck associated events going on. However, I will not be talking a lot about that here because I did make a Rhinebeck vlog and I'll make sure to link it down below so you can check that out. And in that video, I not only do a vlog showing you the events that I went to, the hot takes of a specific event that I went to, as well as my hauls of what I purchased and who I supported financially while I was there, because that's honestly my favorite part about going to Yarnie events is being able to support small businesses and other makers that I admire. So make sure to check that video out. I will not be talking about Woolen Folk or any of the other Rhinebeck associated events or my purchases in this video very much. This is going to be everything outside of Rhinebeck. So if you are sick of hearing about Rhinebeck, you don't have to listen to it here. We are moving on. I did have a couple of finished objects, and even though this month was really weird with a lot of traveling and such, as well as my daughter's birthday, there was a lot going on, it felt like, but I still finished a few things. Let me share with you what I've got. First thing that I finished, this one I had to finish before I left on our trip to New York. So we were in New York to visit my family and we timed our visit over Rhinebeck weekend so we can make sure to also go to a few different events and fibery things since my mom crochets, and so I thought that would be really fun to share that with her going all together. So that was part of our trip to New York, but we went to visit my family. So before we went to visit my family, I had to finish, ta-da, my Rhinebeck doodle cowl, and I was so happy that I got to test this. I did the infinity cowl version, as you can see, because I knew I was going to Rhinebeck when I applied, so I thought it would be fun to wear it. It is much too warm, so I did not end up wearing it, but I did attach it to my purse, and I had it with me when I went to Woolen Folk specifically, because that's where Jamie Lomax of Pacific Knit Co. was vending, and so I wanted to show it to her and I wanted to meet her in person. So I did bring it with me, even if it was not along my neck like I had planned. Where did I start? Okay. You'll see it kind of bows out a little bit right here. This is where I grafted. So I must have grafted a little bit looser than my actual gauge for the knitting. And I haven't reblocked it since I grafted it. So we'll see if that comes out or if it just is what it is. But these are kind of the motifs I did. Some little sheepies. I was thinking about doing a sheep butt on the other side, but I ran out of room, so I couldn't do turned around sheep. A hank of yarn, pumpkins, leaves, some cute llamas, scarves, apples, more leaves, more tiny sheepies, this really cool pattern. This is, I don't even know what this is supposed to be, but I think it's gorgeous. Some balls of yarn, a little ziggy zag. Oh wait, I started for that. So yeah, that's my cowl. I made the smallest size thinking that my daughter would enjoy wearing it because she does like stealing my gloves, hats, scarves, shawls, all those types of accessories. And so this one was kind of made with her in mind that she could actually wear it if she wanted to. It is a little thick this way, so it looks kind of really cute on her because it's super bunched up. But maybe I can get a picture of her wearing it. I've not been successful by this moment in time. I used Cascade 220 yarn. The colors are not listed on the label, so I had to look them up. They are listed down below if you want to know the actual color names. So something really funny is both my dad and Jamie Lomax said the same thing when I showed my cowl to them. They said that it looked kind of like Christmassy colors, and that was not at all what I intentioned. But I guess I do see greens and reds and stuff. I was thinking it was more of a fall-y, apple-y color. Really, I didn't pick based on the color palette for a fall themed cowl. I just picked two colors I liked and built my palette off of that so that I could at least know that I liked my colors together, even if they had nothing to do with Rhinebeck or fall in upstate New York. But then when I made it, I thought, oh, these are like apples, right? Apparently not for some people, but I do have a lot more of this yarn left. I've debated whether or not I should count that I've used up those skeins because I have like probably 50 or 60 grams left of most of those skeins. I have to double check my math on my project page, but it's listed on Ravelry if you care to look there. But I have lots of yarn left, so I can definitely make something. Maybe I should make something Christmassy. Who knows? All right, the next two projects I finished while I was in New York, and I think I finished both of them really early on. I finished one of them on the airplane. I can't remember, but I wore one of them to Woolen Folk on Friday. And then the other one I managed to finish, I think, before we left like the Hudson Valley area. So technically both of them I finished Rhinebeck weekend, which is really cool. I just had gotten so far on them by the time we showed up in like the Socrates, Catskill, Rhinebeck area that I just needed to like do the decreases, and those happened really fast. So first one, this is my Desert Vista Dye Works project for the monthly sock club this month, in the month of October. And I made a Musselburgh hat with the color Jobs. It's alternating between this like dark gray, multicolored speckles, light gray, multicolored speckles. And it was really fun. And tons of people commented on this hat. It was really just, I didn't have a sweater for Friday to wear, and so I just put on this hat because I just finished it. So at least I was wearing something knitting that people could see besides my socks. And everyone loved it. People were commenting on it a ton. Definitely not my intention. It is a little bit like loud and proud, but also with the gray, it's not super obnoxious to look at. I think it looks really good. I'm really happy with how it turned out. And I finished it way earlier in the month than I needed to. I just needed to finish by the end of the month for the Desert Vista Dye Works monthly sock club, which I can't remember if I mentioned this in the last podcast, but I think I saw that Susan is ending it after this year. So I'm really glad I'm participating. So far, I am 10 for 10 doing my months. I have 2 more months to go, and then I will have completed it for the entire year of 2023, which it sounds like is her last year of doing this monthly sock club. So I'll get the last exclusive skein. I'm really excited. I have done well so far. I need to pick my project for November. And then my other finished object that I made, I finished right at the tail end of Rhinebeck weekend. I think maybe on our drive back to my parents' house. It was like maybe a 5-hour drive. So it was a little bit of a drive, but I finished my Harlow hat. Ta-da! I do have it technically inside out. I use this purpley color. It's so hard to capture on camera. I use the purpley color as my main color, and then I use this like creamy speckled color for the contrast color. So I made a Harlow by Andrea Mowry. This is using fingering weight yarn. I use Coast to Coast Yarn Co. in the colors Earthen and Polypore. I love this combo together. I've been eyeing it for a while. It's on my Make 23 and 2023 list, which I am woefully behind on, but I'm so happy with it, except I made it way too long. This hat is the perfect slouch. Just a little bit of boop. I could even have it a little longer and that wouldn't be a problem. But this hat has like a huge slouch, which I know is like some people's look, but this is not my look. I have kind of a smaller head, and so I feel like it looks a little bit awkward. I can, oh man, my hair. We'll just ignore that for now. I can fold up the brim, and I get the right kind of like little bit of slouch, a little bit of like a looser fit, and I like how that looks. Though not exactly the look I was going for because I wasn't planning on folding up the brim. My issue was, oh gosh, my hair, so sorry. Okay, my main issue was, and I've never had this happen before in brioche, but I haven't made a ton of projects, so I don't know if it's something with my tension or what, but it's just vertical, right? But when I first made the hat, everything was like twisted around, and so everything was going diagonal. So when I measured for the length of the hat, I measured vertically rather than following the diagonal of the like lines of the brioche, if that makes sense. And in a triangle, that diagonal is way longer than the vertical edge. So it ended up being longer than the pattern calls for because of that, but there's no way I'm gonna frog down to here and like fix it. Like that's just not gonna happen. You live and you learn. I don't know why my tension did that. It was very strange. It was very diagonal, but now I know to watch out for that. And it makes sense in retrospect why I have this issue now of it being too long. But in the moment, I just wasn't sure which way to go, and I didn't want the hat to be too short, and it was kind of hard to tell traveling how long I needed it to be, and so I did the best I could, and now my hat is too long. But what can you do? I still really like it. I have plenty of yarn left. I haven't weighted, I don't think. I love how it looks. It's super perfect for the fall. It was really fun, easy, mindless to make. I will definitely want to make another one. I do have the Harlow worsted pattern, so I might do a worsted hat because that would work up super, super fast. We shall see. I'm not sure. But I'm happy that I finally made this hat. It's been sitting around for a long time in my to make pile, so I did it. I enjoyed it. It wasn't too hard. I learned a lot because I haven't done a ton of brioche, and so I was able to get more familiar with the anatomy of the stitches and ways to fix or improve things if they go haywire. So, learning lots, which is also a good thing. Technically, I only have one work in progress, and that's because I have been ignoring a few things that are lingering. I really do need to get back into them. First thing though, it came all the way with me to New York, and I did not work on it at all. And I just wanted to share because I thought it was pretty funny. I have my second sock from the Stephen West mystery knit along that he did in July that I haven't touched since July. I have the cuff done. I've started the leg. I need to work on this. I have another sock project from July I haven't worked on since then, and another sock that I need to do the second sock for, I think from August. So I definitely wore myself out on socks and I have been ignoring them, but I really just need to get things moving because I don't really have a good traveling waiting room, being passenger princess in the car type of a project right now. So I really do need to pull something together so that I can have something with me, easy to take to work if I'm doing a night shift or something, etc., etc. I do need to kind of readjust my mindset as we're moving into like the heart of fall, and with Christmas coming, working on potentially holiday themed projects, Christmas Eve projects, any gifts I may want to make. I gotta kind of figure out what I want to do, and I'll definitely be sharing my holiday projects that I'm hoping to make in a vlog for Vlogmas coming up, so keep an eye out for that. I do plan on doing Vlogmas, though it'll be a little bit different this year. It'll be much more intentional, fewer videos, but more specific themes and plans for those videos so that they're not just a vlog of what does my day look like, but there's specific content. That's my hope. So I need to make a plan so I can figure out how these next 2 months are gonna go. But after I kind of figure out what I want to do, I gotta start working on these projects and hopefully knock out some of these lingering things. But my one actual whip that I have been working on, I cast on at Rhinebeck because I had prepared to cast it on earlier in the week, and we like packed our things and left for the airport kind of in a hurry a little bit. Like I didn't double check to make sure I had all my needles, and I did not have the right needle size with me to start the ribbing. And then I didn't have the right cord size with me for the yoke, and so it was just like a mess. So I had to wait till I had purchased a couple more knitting supplies while I was out and about at fiber festivals, and then I could finally cast on. So I cast it on while we were in New York, and we were doing really good. I'm on the body. Here's the front. I started a Maven top by Maven Handcrafted. So if you're familiar with Rachel Raimo's patterns, Raimo, I'm not sure how that's pronounced actually, but she does this like stockinette pearl texture in a lot of her patterns, like the Cinnabar, the Cinnacardi, the Maven top. I feel like she has like socks and stuff. She's got quite a few patterns with this kind of motif in it, and I've wanted to make this top for a while. This yarn is from Teeny Button, and it's called Wednesday in a Cafe, Taylor Swift inspired, and it's this beautiful like beigey color with some really pretty like even like maroon, brown, even some blue speckles. It's just a really fun dynamic colorway. There's like some more rosy pinkish tints in it. Definitely looks more homogeneous from farther away, but when you look at it closely, there's some really interesting detail, which I really like. This is a very loose gauge for this yarn, not like a superbly loose. I'm not quite sure. I think it should be fine, but I might need to wear something underneath it. I do not know yet. I should try it on. I have not yet, but that requires taking the needles off and adjusting the arm stitches that are on a cord right now. Probably I should just finish the sleeves because there's only like 2 or 3 rounds and then binding off. And so then I can be done with those. That might be really helpful, but I kind of do want to try everything on first before I get too much farther. I'm maybe like 3 inches into the body. I got a couple inches done at work the other night because my patients were sleeping. Thank goodness. I love it. Doing what we all should be doing at night, right? So I made some progress, but I really need to try it on super quick before I go any farther, just in case there's something horribly wrong with the fit that I need to address. I think it should probably be fine, but you never know, right? So this is my only whip that I've been working on, and it's honestly not too big of a project. It's 2 skeins that I'm alternating so that the colors will kind of blend together. Even though they're both the same colorway, they're very different looking. This one's definitely more darker, a little bit more yellowy brown. This one's more pale. That's a good thing that I'm alternating skeins because that'll help with that. And you don't even really tell the difference on here. It's just kind of all blended together. So alternate your skeins with hand-dyed yarn. It's totally normal for your skeins to vary. And so one way you can combat that is alternating. So it's not too big of a project. It's a 2 skein. It's just a t-shirt. It's really easy because it's just knitting and then purling alternatingly, and I'm really comfortable with the repeat. And so it's not a hard project. So that's why I haven't gotten something else ready as like a travel project, because this is fine for traveling, even though I really should be working on all my socks that need companions. Would you believe me if I told you that I only have 2 things to share with you in the Yarn Goodies section? Now, like I said, I'm not sharing anything that I got from Wilmafolk or Rhinebeck or local yarn stores to that area, anything like that related to Rhinebeck weekend. That is all going to be in my vlog, so check that out. I will give you a little sneak peek. This is about half of my yarn that I purchased. Ooh. To actually see my haul, check out my vlog. Other things that I've purchased recently. So my friend Liz of Little Owl Designs came out with like a fall fade collection of stitch markers, earrings, things like that out of polymer clay. And I ordered this set, and I don't remember what it's called, but it was somewhere near the middle of the fade. But it's this beautiful like yellowy, reddy, burgundy type of meld together. And then I am part of Liz's focus group on Instagram. And so this was open to all of her followers that can join like that broadcast channel and see different sneak peeks that she'll share or vote on different things. And so as a thank you for participating in that focus group, I was gifted this cute marker. She's done some teeny tiny sweater. She's done some teeny sweater design. Oh my gosh, how do I say this? She's done in the past a collection or 2 of designer sweaters in a teeny stitch marker version, and so this was a fun homage to that, as well as coordinating with the fall leaves. So super cute. That was a really great surprise, and so you should definitely join that focus group so you can get involved in giving feedback on the things that she's making, the things that she's hoping to sell, exclusive coupons and whatnot. And I even got a stitch marker out of it, so highly recommend Liz. It's been really fun to see the things that she's made, and it's fun to support her as my friend. The only other thing to share with you here for new Yarn Goodies is this book I actually picked up today from Barnes & Noble. I went to Barnes & Noble today, and I saw they had this little cart of like last chance books, and they had this knitting book called The Knit Vibe. I've never seen this book before, but it's by Vicky Howell, and I recognize her name, but I can't think off the top of my head what she's been involved with in the knitting community. But book is cute, looks well put together. I have heard zero things about this book, and so I want to take a look and see. I mean, $5, definitely worth $5. Okay, it's a few years old, 2019. Yeah. So we'll see how this goes. I do think I want to do some book reviews for my channel related to yarn content. And so I got some supplies. They're coming in the mail soon, so I can start working on like a little series going over books that are in the fiber arts realm. And I can share with you my thoughts, feelings, who I think would really like that kind of book, what its use is for you potentially, things like that. So if there are any books in particular or other publications like magazines or whatnot you would love for me to review, let me know down below, because I would love to know what you want to hear, because I have a huge library of fiber arts related books and I want to know where to start, or if there's something else that I really need to pick up so I can read something else. This past month has been a busy one. We went to Rhinebeck, and so there was a lot of like last minute trying to figure out things for that. I traveled to visit my family. I grew up near Buffalo, New York, and so then from there we drove out to the Hudson Valley area, did a couple things while we were out in that area related to fiber festivals and yarn stores and whatnot, drove back to Buffalo, New York area, and then spent a few more days with my family before flying back home to Utah, which is where we're living now. And then we had my daughter's birthday. She just turned 3, which is, I can't even imagine. She's like her own little person and has so many opinions and things that she likes. It's just like really cool to see how she's flourishing and blossoming as a tiny human who can like make decisions and have preferences, and it's just really fun. A couple days after her birthday, we did a family birthday party, and because my daughter Georgia loves Halloween, we did a Halloween themed birthday party. Super fun. Got to throw together a few different like appetizers, snacky things that were related to Halloween. We had all of the extended family on my husband's side of the family. They all came, and most of them dressed up in costume, which was super, super fun. So we did that, and then had to work a couple night shifts. And then we were at Halloween, which again, my daughter really loves Halloween, so we made sure to go to her daycare party for Halloween. We went trick-or-treating. I went dressed as a witch too. My daughter wanted to be a witch, so we didn't match necessarily because her witch costume was very different than mine, but we were both witches and she thought that was so fun. So I'll definitely make sure to throw up some pictures and videos of a couple of those things to let you guys know kind of what that ended up looking like. So it's been kind of like hit the ground running since we got back from New York. So finally I have time to do a little filming today, kind of get ourselves resituated. I'm ready for the chaos to slow down a little, but my birthday's coming up soon, so now I have to figure out what I want for my birthday so I can tell other people what to get me for my birthday. It just never stops, right? And Christmas, and oh my goodness, trying to go the last couple days before Halloween to go shopping for Halloween plates, Halloween bowls, Halloween party things, they were gone. There was nothing in the stores. I went to the grocery store. I went to Walmart. I went to Target. I went to Home Goods. I went to all the places and it was all gone. Not like entirely. I also went to like Michael's and Joann's. And the most I ever saw at any of those places was like one little display. And that was like what was left of their Halloween stuff. Christmas came already and I like cannot handle that. So now I'm worried it's going to be the same thing where if I don't buy all my Christmas stuff now, I will not be able to buy any Christmas stuff in December because it'll be all gone. Is that an irrational fear? We moved into this house, our very first house, in December, I think. We arrived here, so we were not planning on decorating because we were still waiting for the moving trucks, trying to get unpacked, trying to figure out where things would go. We were not even planning on being here for Christmas. That was a little different. Like, we ended up being stranded here because of a bunch of flight cancellations and stuff. And so we were here for Christmas, but we didn't really decorate. It was just, we didn't have the time. This year, we have the budget and we have the space and we have a place that's more permanent. So I really want to decorate for Christmas because it's one of my favorite holidays, if not my most favorite holiday. And so I need to take stock of what we've got, need to make plans, need to buy some things. We're gonna buy a Christmas tree. We've had this little like pencil tree. It's called like a Virginia pine. I don't know, but it's like a pencil Christmas tree. So it's like really skinny and it looks a little silly. And it was something that we got for free from someone. And it was a good fit for living in different apartments and things. But I want an actual sized Christmas tree to go in our house. And I want to decorate it how I want to decorate it now. My tastes have changed over the past like 6 years of marriage since I first purchased a few things. It's gonna be a big Christmas year, so I need to figure out what I wanna get so that hopefully I can still buy the things I want and decorate our house and be really intentional about it so that we can bring in the Christmas season and be ready for that. Not that I'm trying to forget of Thanksgiving, but how do you even decorate for Thanksgiving? And my daughter loves Halloween so much, we might just leave up Halloween another couple of weeks and then just transition to Christmas because we won't have Thanksgiving at our house anyway. We'll probably go to my in-laws. I don't know. I love me Thanksgiving, but I also love Christmas and I'm so excited and I'm feeling the itch to Christmas right now. So that's kind of been our month. Not a ton has been happening for the first half of the month. It was more just like getting ready, anxiously awaiting, and then like boom, 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 we had so many things going on the second half of the month. No big plans this month other than maybe decorating for Christmas. If we get a little bit excited, if my husband will let me, he probably will just let me do whatever I want, honestly, because he doesn't feel too strongly, I don't think. But I will keep you updated. All right, so in the month of October, I was able to read 16 books, which is amazing. I am so glad that I've been able to fit in so much reading, and it's really not as difficult as you would think. I do lots of audiobooks on my commutes, and anytime I'm driving anywhere, audiobooks. If I'm doing chores, might be doing an audiobook, might be watching YouTube. I've definitely not done as much YouTube recently because I've been sucked into some audiobooks. That's how I've read a lot of audiobooks. I've read 9 this past month. And then that leaves technically 7 other books. One of them's a graphic novel that took me like 2 or 3 hours to finish. So I feel like that's a different category. And then I have 6 other regular novels that I have read during the month. Most of that reading took place on night shifts at work when patients were sleeping or traveling because we took 2 airplanes to get to New York, 2 airplanes back. I wasn't able to read or knit the whole time, but I definitely got in some. So that's kind of how I fit in that much reading this past month. The first book I finished in October, I already mentioned in my last podcast because I finished it right at the very beginning of the month. So we will start from the very next book that I finished. I listened to this book, Dracula by Bram Stoker, and this is a classic. Ooh, when was it first published? I honestly don't know, but I think it's the 1800s. It is an old book. I actually really enjoyed it. I think I rated it 3.75 stars. If this book had been written with less misogyny, less gender stereotypes and like asserted gender roles, not just with like jobs and positions and stuff, but like, let's leave the damsel in distress at home, or like, oh, this is like too grisly and difficult. She shouldn't know about what's going on because it's like too much for her poor female heart to handle. Like, if there wasn't any of that misogyny or like gender roles or stereotypes in the book, I would have loved this. Also, the pacing, it was really good for a classic novel. It still was very readable from a modern standpoint, but I feel like if this had been written in like 2023 with a 2023 pacing, I would have loved this story even more. So it was really good. It was a good classic, but I need a good retelling that is written in modern times because it's a really good story, really good cast of characters. So I wish the pacing was a little bit different, and I wish that it wasn't so misogynistic. I mean, what can you do with a classic? I don't think we should get rid of classics just because there are problematic things in them. I think that those problematic things are good discussion topics that can help us better understand our world, and we still see some of those issues today, even if they're not as common, and I think they're important to understand. So I'm not one to cancel classic books because they have content I don't approve of. I just think it's something to take note of and to continue to learn from. The next book that I finished was a physical book, and this was a reread for me. I don't do very many rereads. This is Coraline by Neil Gaiman. This is my old copy. You can see it's all like gross and dusty. This is my old copy from when I was younger. I remember reading this and really liking it enough that I decided to keep it all the way up through adulthood. I haven't kept all my books from when I was younger. And I decided to reread it. I thought it would be a perfect Halloween read. And I think this was my favorite book that I read this month. It was perfect. It was a book I remember enjoying when I was younger. Even reading it now at the age of 28, there were parts that spooked me and that gave me the creeps. It definitely had that like creepy horror elements. It was very readable, very approachable, very nice compact story that had a good like beginning, middle, end, had good plots moving through. Of course, I saw some of the like plot twists coming, but it wasn't written to be plot twisty. And so I didn't mind that at all. I felt like it was a really good story, really well written. I really connected with the characters. It was a great book. I highly recommend if you have not read it, or if you need something that's a little bit more spooky Halloween themed, this is a great option and also really good for kids. I think it might be a middle grade novel. Like it's not made for like young adult. Like it's even younger than like a 12 to 18 time frame, I feel like. The next book I listened to, this is called Cold Clay by Juneau Black, and I purchased the first book in the series of cozy woodland critter mysteries, and I found that while I liked it, I wasn't sure if I wanted to purchase more of the books, and I think I might, because I have been really enjoying them even more and more as I've been listening to them. It's the second book in the Shady Hollow series, and I really liked it. Of course, it's a cozy mystery. The source of the mystery was like pretty obvious, but like how that mystery happened was really what I was reading for, to kind of learn all the details, because even if you're like, I think I suspect who it is, and by the end you're like, okay, yeah, I was right, you don't know how all those details came into place to make that happen. And so there was still a mystery element that I was surprised by, that I learned. I like the characters. I think they're very lovable. They're very interesting, and you get to see more dynamics of the characters in the second book compared to the first book, which I liked. I think I also rated that a 3.75. The next book I listened to is called Cackle by Rachel Harrison, and this book has been on my TBR for a little bit, but I saved it for the month of October. Cackle is about a girl who's starting over in her life, moves to a small town to teach there, to get away from the big city, and her ex, who is not a good person, but not a good person in like a totally relatable and normal way, like very realistic way of being not a good person and kind of toxic in their relationship. So I appreciated the realism there, and she ends up meeting someone who is a witch, ? And she learns a lot about herself. She learns a lot about her relationships. There's a ton of character growth in this book. I think I rated it a 4.25. I, in general, really enjoyed it. There were definitely things that I would have wanted to be just a little bit different, but I feel like it all came full circle. It was actually a little bit more like horror-based than I anticipated. Like just, there's a lot of creativity in the magic that was used. So it wasn't just like, oh, you're cursed, now your life is horrible, but like there'd be like bugs that would like come out of you. I don't know, but it was a lot more creative than that with the kinds of cursings, and so it definitely gave me the creeps a little bit, so nice and spooky for this season. Overall, a good book. I enjoyed it. The next book I read was called Delicates by Brenna Thummler, and this is the second book in the Sheets graphic novel series, and I think I rated this one higher than the first book, or about the same. I think it's about the same, 4.25 stars. And this book deals a lot more with topics that are unique, I feel like, to middle schoolers. The main characters are in middle school, like 8th grade, I think. So it wasn't as relatable to me because it talked a lot about bullying, finding your true friends, feeling like you belong, things like that. And so while they're very important discussions and pertinent for that age group, for me it was not pertinent, and so I had a hard time connecting with it, and it wasn't as compelling of a story to read. but I really appreciate how it was told. And if I was younger, I feel like this book would have been really meaningful for me to read. I next listened to Acceptance by Jeff VanderMeer, which is the third book in the Annihilation series. And I've talked about the first two books in a previous podcast. This third book was no different. It was weird. It was intriguing. It did not answer nearly as many questions as I had. I think I liked how it had multiple points of view, and so it was interesting, but then it got to the point where only certain points of view were interesting to read, and I just wanted to like only read certain points of view because some of them were like not giving me any like feedback on things I wanted to learn. Overall, I really wish that I'd had more of my questions answered. What can you do? But definitely intriguing, interesting. 3.5, 3.75, kind of in there. The next book I read, this is another audiobook. I listened to a lot of shorter audiobooks this month too, so I moved through them pretty fast. This book was called House of Good Bones, and this is by Kingfisher. It's my first Kingfisher, and I'm obsessed. I need to read all of their things. I love this book so, so much. I think I rated it like a 4.5 star. I wish that because it is a horror, that there was more horror elements earlier on in the story. Like, I just wasn't that concerned and creeped out for the first 75% of the book. It was a really good story. There were definitely some creepy elements, but it wasn't as much as I had hoped for. And then the last like 25% of the book was like full of horror, and it was like fascinating. I could not look away. I was sucked in. I could not stop listening. I loved it. And this book, the protagonist, is hilarious, like so funny, laugh out loud, constantly, amazing narrator. I really, really enjoyed it. And so I'm excited to read more of their work. The next book that I read was, I think it was a novella. It's only like 5 hours to listen to. This book is called Dowry of Blood by S.T. Gibson. And this was what I hoped would be my perfect retelling of Dracula in a more modern time period. And it just did not hit for me. It's more of a, I think they said on the back cover, a reimagining, meaning that, I don't know, am I asking too much? If I want a retelling, it either needs to be entirely different but have parallels to the original story, or it needs to be almost canon, but like an expansion on canon. Is that too much to ask for? I don't know. I was just hoping I would get a lot more character development about Dracula himself, about his wives. The characterization that this character took, that path, just didn't fit the first book. It didn't fit the original. And so I had a hard time like appreciating this book because I kept comparing it to Dracula and being like, no, that's not what I wanted. I wanted to hear from these 3 wives that you see in the Dracula story and get a better understanding of them. But it was just not the same. It definitely was like a big pivot. It wasn't what I was hoping for in a retelling. The writing is beautiful, very lyrical, very poetic. It's written as a series of like letters from one of the wives to Dracula, kind of working towards his demise. And yeah, it's like the whole storyline is not at all related to the original Dracula. I don't know. It just wasn't like different enough from Dracula to be kind of in the realm of retellings that I wanted it to be in. So it wasn't quite what I was looking for, but it might be what you're looking for. Definitely tons of trigger warnings, so please check those out first because there's a lot of really deep, intense content and topics. The next book I read, definitely more of a hit than a miss, was The Dead Romantics by Ashley Poston. She just recently came out with The 7-Year Slip, and I have that on my TBR. I'm going to hopefully read it soon. This is a paranormal romance where this girl is a ghostwriter. She can see ghosts. The new editor for the writer, for whom she is being a ghostwriter, is now a ghost. Like, she met him in person and then apparently now he's a ghost. And so she's trying to help him figure out like how to kind of tie up loose ends so that he can pass peacefully and be let go from this world. Very interesting topic. Definitely not super gruesome, but there's a lot of discussion on grief as she is grieving a recent family member passing away. So there's lots of grief. There's lots of like family dynamics. And this romance is more of like two people are feeling connected and she's feeling like she's missing out of what could be if he wasn't a ghost. So super interesting story. I saw the plot twist coming. There was good enough hints, but I also know that some people might not see the plot twist coming the way that it was written. So it was really fun, fascinating, definitely made me cry, lots of feelings, a romance, but it's like a strong romance subplot. And like the ending on the book is very romance focused, but a majority of the book is focused on grief, her coming to terms with herself, living in a world without her family member, and whether or not she wants to continue acknowledging her gift to see ghosts, how she's patching up her relationships with her family, things like that, as she has kind of addressing the ghosts of her past as well. So, highly recommend, 4.5 stars, so good. The next book that I actually finished on my Kindle, but I have a physical copy now, and so I wanted to share it with you. Sage and Storm. This is the second book in the, brain. Oh my gosh. This is the second book in the Shadow and Bone trilogy by Leigh Bardugo. It is a young adult. I do have the blinds closed on my window, but it's still shining off of the cover of the book, so sorry. But this is the second book. It definitely had a lot more setup for the third book, so not my favorite of the two that I've read so far, but still a good book, still really interesting. You still learn things about the character, things still progress, but definitely a middle book in the trilogy. I am reading the third book, and I only had like one sit down of reading it. Well, technically not a sit down. I like to, at my job, my unit is a big square. So in the middle of the night, when I'm getting a little tired, or when I've been sitting for too long and I need to get up and moving, I will walk the square and do laps, and I will go until I reach like a mile or a mile and a half. I will be doing that for like over a half an hour, and so it's a great time for me to have my Kindle because it's pretty lightweight, easy to hold on to, easy to flip pages, and so I've been reading my Kindle that way, and I've read like that much. That's a good solid chunk of the book, like maybe a fifth of the book I read in like a mile and a half walk around my unit in the middle of the night at like 4 a.m. So I don't think it'll take too long for me to finish this book. I am feeling overwhelmed by the amount of series I want to get into or that I've already started. So I'm trying really hard to finish this series. And then I think I'm going to do the King of Scars duology so I can be done with the Grishaverse. Grishaverse? I don't know how to pronounce it. And then I can move on to something else. Because I just hate having all these like loose ends of series going on. Just like mentally, I want to be immersed in a world and get through the whole world before I move on to something else. That's just kind of how I'm feeling. The next book that I read, I also read on my Kindle, but from my library. I don't do that often because I don't read physical books as often. So I much prefer doing audiobooks from the library. I get through them quicker, but this one was not available on audiobooks. But I saw it in the bookstore and I didn't want to buy it. Saw that it was going to be offered at my library, so I just took a chance, read it on my Kindle, and I'm glad I did not purchase it. The book is called The Witches of Bone Hill by Ava Morgyn, and this book is about these two sisters who are called away from their lives. Both simultaneously have a lot of issues going on, though one sister, the main character, way more than the other, like in a ridiculous way. Like the first chapter or two, you're like, all this couldn't possibly be happening to this girl. Like, it's just ridiculous. And like, even like mafia is brought up, and like, it's just, that kind of turned me off it a little bit. It just like was so ridiculous. Like, you can prove a point that this character is in the pit of despair and like the lowest point of her life without throwing every single horrible thing you could possibly think of at her. Because I feel like all those extraneous details of like horrible things that she is going through in her life were not needed to further the plot, and they just kind of like added extra filler throughout the story that like really didn't need to be there. That's part of the reason why I only rated a 3.25 star, my lowest rating. But anyway, so these two sisters whose lives are not going great get called in to inherit the house of their great aunt who passed away. Lo and behold, it is like a manor. It is big, it is creepy, it is gothic, and there's some weird stuff going on. Was their great aunt involved in some weird stuff too? Is that why their mom cut off ties with this part of the family? All the questions. So there's a lot of mystery as they're trying to figure out exactly what's happening with the house, with their family, what their part is in it. Lots of mystery. very creepy. The characterization of the house itself was super fascinating. Tons of really creepy, spooky stuff happens. Very creative, spooky stuff too. And so I really enjoyed reading about that. Kind of almost horrific in a sense. There was some really interesting folklore that was brought into this family's history. It had a lot of really great things going for it, but it just felt kind of ridiculous in the setup of the story, and the romance felt a lot of it forced. Like, I did not see the chemistry for the characters, or like I did not care about them getting together. There was a lot of superfluous detail that got in the way of the atmosphere of the house and the book and the mystery. They kind of just distracted and detracted from the story. So lots of great potential. I would recommend reading it, but I had a lot of things that bothered me. The next book I listened to was called Rolling in the Deep by Mira Grant, and this is actually a novella, and it's the prequel to another book. I don't know which came first. Basically, this TV network is trying to put together a mockumentary about mermaids, and so they send a huge ship full of people to go document these mermaids. They even have like scientists and stuff, and they have like fake mermaids on board, and like they have this huge crew. Lo and behold, they find mermaids. Or do they? Is it fake or is it not? In the full-length book, a sister of one of the passengers on this original ship tries to find out what really happened, because no one in the outside world really knows. This prequel is about the ship and what actually happened. Very creepy, very horrific, kind of gory. It was nice and short. It made me want more. So it was a good book. I think I may read the actual story, which is a much longer audiobook than this prequel. But I really enjoyed the prequel, and so I'm looking forward to reading more about this story. Okay, the next audiobook that I listened to, and this is a special one. It's The Only One Left by Riley Sager. This is my first Riley Sager book, and I think I may read more from him. This book is special because I was able to skip the line. There was a skip the line loan on this book that was available. So it had a shorter loan time from the library than typical, and I was not able to renew it. So I had a very fixed deadline to finish this book, but I managed to finish it. The Only One Left by Riley Sager is about a caregiver who is hired to take care of someone who is a murderer, of her whole family. And you basically learn more about what actually happened. And this book is full of twists and turns. I saw about half of them coming. The other half definitely didn't see coming. But there were so many twists and turns, it almost felt like they were getting ridiculous. I rated this a 4.25 star. It was really fun to read. Lots of really interesting plot twists. And it was only like the last like 30 to 50 pages that I was like, come on, like another plot twist. Like, can't you just like leave it? I don't know. So it got a little bit ridiculous in the number of plot twists, but it was a fun read, and a lot of them were really interesting, and I really liked to see how the story actually came together. The last audiobook I read in the month of October was called Mirror Lake by Juneau Black, and so this is the third book in the Shady Hollow mystery series. As I mentioned, as I've been progressing through the series, I've liked them more and more. I rated this one a 4-star. This one I really, really liked. It was very similar to the second book in that I knew right away who'd done it, basically. The plot twist of what was happening, I knew like the main plot twist of it from the very beginning. It was really easy to see like what is the only logical explanation for this to be happening. But a lot of the smaller points and a lot of the details of like why it was happening came to me throughout the book. So less mysterious. Definitely even less so than I would say the second book, but I love the interaction of the characters, and it was really fun to see this world grow and the characters grow in it, and it was just a really interesting read to follow it along. I really liked the pacing of getting the information for the clues and such. I had a really fun time. And then the last book that I finished in the month of October was a physical book, Halloween Party. I finished this on the 30th. On my night shift. This is a Hercule Poirot. I have a hard time pronouncing that. mystery by Agatha Christie. So it is older. When was it originally written? Let me see. I think it was in 68. Is that me just making things up? 69. Wow, that's actually pretty close. Wow. 1969. So can you only imagine the amount of politically incorrect and inappropriate topics that were mentioned and viewpoints of blaming the youth for the murder, blaming people who are mentally unstable. I had a hard time with that, especially because it wasn't just mentioned, which I wouldn't be surprised if it was mentioned in an old book like this, but it was mentioned over and over and over by multiple people. And so those topics of conversation were really bothersome to me because they perpetuate stereotypes that are not accurate. I really like Hercule Poirot. I like the mystery of it. There were lots of red herrings, lots of scapegoats. It was really interesting to see how it all came together. And so I definitely want to read more. If you know of any Hercule Poirot or Agatha Christie specific books or Agatha Christie detective stories, I think also Miss Marple is another one of her characters that has detective stories. If you know of any of those books that have less of the topics of conversation I did not like, that includes stereotypes and generalizations and just unsavory comments about other people, I would love to hear, because I like the general concept, but so much of the dialogue was taken up by topics and assumptions I really did not like, and I did not want to keep hearing over and over again. So let me know if you have any recommendations for me. But I do like me a good detective mystery story that's more complicated than a cozy mystery. My goal for the month of October was to read only Halloween, spooky, dark academia, mystery, horror type books, and I did a really great job. The only book I think that I finished that was not part of that category was Siege and Storm, and that's because I had started that book the month before, and so I wanted to finish it, and I thought that that was just fine. So yeah, 15 books last month, fitting into the season. I may read some more in November. I have some more stragglers that I would like to get to before things get into the heart of winter. But I'm kind of burnt out on this type of vibe, and so I definitely want to read some other things too for the month of November. So you'll have to check out my video next month to see what all I've read. You can also check me out on Instagram. I try to share what I'm reading and also my reviews there. And I'll leave my Storygraph link down below so that you can follow me, be a friend with me there, and see the things that I am reading. And also my in-depth reviews will be there as well. I think that this podcast will be under an hour. That's a pretty awesome, though a lot of the content is reserved for the Rhinebeck vlog, so make sure to check that one out. So I'll have it linked down below, and make sure to check out all my notes down there so you can learn more about what I'm making and get any links that you may be interested in. And thank you so much for watching. I will see you next time. Happy making. Bye!